Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about New Nightmare. And this movie is directed by Wes Craven, and it came out in 1994. And it has all of the original cast from the previous movies, mainly the first movie, and also some new cast members and new characters. And it's taking place outside of the franchise. And what I mean is that the previous movies were movies in the context of this movie, but this is also a movie where Freddy is like haunting our main character, and Heather, like the actual actress, not like the character, because the character in the original was Nancy, but in this movie they just say the actors' names. That's what makes it like clear as to like what's going on. And of course they are still acting. This isn't like a behind the scenes film of like everything that happened. This is its own thing, and I thought this movie was really great. I loved this movie, and what really surprised me about this movie right out of the gate, like, I was surprised how successful this movie was at being a horror movie. And I was thinking like, yeah, this will probably be good. I heard this movie was good, but I wasn't expecting it to be scary as much as it was, and it was always very successful whenever it was trying to be a horror movie. And those are my favorite scenes in the movie, and I like the performances a lot. Robert Englund returning as Freddy Krueger, as like two roles, kind of playing himself but also a character, but at the same time he plays Freddy Krueger, like in two different contexts, if that's even a word. I like how that's presented, and it's really fun, and in ways, this movie, it did kind of feel like a proto-Scream, but kind of taking out the satire of horror movies. Like, it's not trying to be a comedy at all. It's trying to be a serious horror movie, and I do think it's very successful at that. And there's just lots of really great scenes. I like the opening scene for this movie, and there's some nice subversion of expectations throughout the film, and you genuinely have no idea where the plot is going to go, and you don't know who's going to die, who isn't, for a decent amount of the runtime. And the only thing that I knew going into this movie was the one iconic scene where Freddy Krueger attacks the one lady in the hospital. Like, I think that's the most iconic scene from this movie, where he's like, ever play Skin the Cat? Like, that was a great scene. And also, I like the redesign for Freddy Krueger in this movie. I do think it's nice that they kind of updated it. Like, he's wearing a hat more often, and they also gave him like a trench coat, and he has claws on all 5 of his fingers instead of just the 4. Although I do prefer the original, I just prefer the original design. There's nothing offensively bad about what they do with the character in this movie. I do think that the character is portrayed very well and very creepy, and Robert Englund did a great job. And this movie is also the longest Nightmare on Elm Street film, and I didn't feel the runtime too much. I did feel as though things were moving along and it wasn't really wasting any time, and I like the idea of having all the cast members in the movie, like including Wes Craven, the director, is in the movie, and like that was a fun idea. There's also some fun side characters. Like, I like the limo driver. I thought he was kind of a fun character. I know he's in the movie for like 2 minutes, but he's still fun to watch whenever he's on screen. And I think what helps sell the horror element in this movie is that this movie does a great job at establishing that no one in this movie is safe. Like, there's no place you can hide. There's no place that you can go to. You're always constantly in danger. And because of that, you never feel safe. You always feel like there's like some tension somewhere in the background, like what's going to happen next. And I like how things are presented in that way. And I know I've been talking about this movie pretty positively because I do think this is a great movie. I think this is probably the best Nightmare on Elm Street film since the original. There are probably parts about this movie that I like better than the original, but I'll get into that. But first off, I do have some issues that I want to go through really quickly. it's just some technical stuff to get through. There were points where the movie did feel a bit choppy in the editing room. Like there were just some too many cuts and a couple shots felt a little too close. But aside from that, it was fairly well shot throughout most of it, and you could tell what was going on very clearly. It's just a couple too many cuts at points, and just some shots were a little too close. Like they needed to move the camera back just a little bit, and there's some cheesy effects in this movie as well that looked like it was from 1994, and this movie does use CG, and I was like, yeah, it doesn't always look great. When they use practical effects, it looks great, but the CG doesn't really hold up. There were a couple of flashbacks in the movie that felt a little unnecessary, like they just didn't need to be there. The Doctor characters, I felt, were kind of one-dimensional and didn't really have much personality except to, like, cause a bit of conflict towards the end of the second act. They were kind of annoying. My only other criticism with the movie would be that I don't really like what they did with the main theme in the end credits. I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't on board with it. It was cheesy and kind of ruined it for me. But this movie does use it like the original theme without the bad remix of it in the end credits like before that. And it was used effectively. It was used appropriately. And I love the third act for this movie. I think it's like very satisfying, and it did feel very fan servicey, but like good fan service. Like it knows what it wants to deliver. Like this is a conclusion that the fans have been wanting. Like the ending for these Nightmare on Elm Street films haven't been like the very best, but this one I feel as though worked appropriately and was a lot of fun to watch and was very successful at what it was trying to achieve. And one last thing to mention about this movie, with it being like kind of like a meta movie, if you want to call it that, like taking place outside of the universe and it just being its own thing, with like this franchise existing in this movie as movies. Like anything that was, I guess, taken away from this movie, or like anything that was missing in this movie that the previous movies did have, they definitely make up for it in this film. And that's why it didn't really bother me. Like, this is a really unique film and doesn't get dragged down by, like, what makes this franchise great, and just does its own thing and does it successfully. And I'm happy that this exists. And I am very excited to rewatch it. Like, I want to rewatch this movie right now. Like, I just had a great experience with it, and I just, not a lot of movies can, like, scare me, and the fact that this movie scared me, I think that's worth mentioning. And it did, like, it kind of creeped me out when I was, like, going to bed after I watched this movie. And I think that's, like, worth mentioning and saying that it's like a great movie. So definitely check this movie out. If you like the original film, watch this movie. And in my mind, the only good Nightmare on Elm Street films are the original one, the third one, and this one. So check these three out. And with all that being said, I'm going to give New Nightmare an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching my videos. As always, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below you thought of New Nightmare, and my social media links will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for Amadeus. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.